Further investment in development is earned. Minimum requirements: 90 days and employee in good standing. So why do you make them wait?
Yeah, so this is relative, just for clarity, our fourth anchor, the professional development
Yes, it is. Thank
strategy.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Um, I believe one, someone needs to get through their probation, and you got to understand that they want to be there. And you got to see at least 90 days of behaviors of someone who's committed to the organization. You're a fit for them, they're a fit for you before you invest as a leader in sitting down and helping them develop their career path, and putting all that investment to build a customized plan for them to grow. Um, and you also don't know what you're dealing with for at least 90 days. And then I would say the second part of that is being in good standing. If someone's not performing to the expectations of the existing role, um, they're not granted that opportunity to get developed for a future role or more learning. You'll give them skill development to make them successful in the role they're challenged in today. That's your immediate challenge. But talking about future growth and growth opportunities and learning opportunities above and beyond have to come from the fact that you are in good standing and doing your job well today. That's what grants you a table stake to get further development. Like if I bring you in to sell tickets, um, and like you're showing up to work sometimes, your numbers are way lower than everyone else, you're not open to learning and development, and then you come to me and say, I really want to grow within the company. How do I get to become a manager? I am not going to invest that time in employee development for growth. I'm going to invest my time as a leader of resetting you so you can be successful and stay with inside the organization. So the table stakes is at least 90 days and being satisfactory in your role before we talk about future development.
No number two, no accountability to their performance review. This
Yeah.
is above and beyond learning. It is their plan. What does that mean?
So a personal development strategy, if done right, the employee helps construct. They tell you where they want to go. Your job as a leader is to say, okay, so whether that's a lateral move or perhaps a promotion. So let's keep it simple. So you're making widgets today and you want to be the manager of widget making. That's your desired state. Okay, good. Let's talk. What do you think a manager does? And you have that dialogue and they're like, oh, well, I probably have to like make sure the team hits the numbers and we produce all the widgets we're supposed to. Yeah. Um, but what about industry associations and the widget association so you get to know everybody because you'll be the representative? And by the way, now you have to coach people on how to make widgets. You're not making them yourself anymore. So you need coaching skills. And so you identify all the gaps and then you close them in that plan. But I'm not going to put it in your performance review if you don't do it because it's not pertinent to your role today. It's your plan. It's where you want to go. I'm here to support you. But if you choose not to do it, that is your problem, not mine. But you're still fulfilling the existing role today and you're performing at a high level. And so that takes the pressure off the individual to feel like, oh my God, I was going to go to that course online. If I don't get it, I'm not going to get promoted. And they're saying, hold on a second, I couldn't prioritize it. It's my plan. I'll sit down with Mark again in 2 weeks and we'll put it into the next quarter plan. So there can be no accountability to the development plan, to their performance review, which is evaluating their existing role.
It's their plan. They are the creator and implementer. You are the sculptor and resource allocator. Now, sculpting, there's a reference we made to before, if you recall.
Yep.
You are not the sculptor, if you recall, but the sculptor of the plan, not the employee. It's a very important distinction. It is their plan. They are the creator and implementer. You are the sculptor and resource allocator.
Yeah, so, and there is a difference there. You are not the sculptor of the employee, but you are the help sculpting their plan. So, again, the example of an employee wanting to go to manager, and what you have to do is help them identify their gaps. Well, you know what? You've never managed before, so there's some management skills. And oh boy, you don't really know the financials for the department and the expectations and the KPIs. So we get to start to talk about that because yes, you do the functional role, but that's another gap. Oh, and then by the way, you've probably never written performance reviews, and so we have to teach you how to do that. And so what you're doing is you're identifying the gap. They are developing their plan and where they want to go, and you're helping sculpt that approach. So you're challenging them. Inquiry. Okay, well, how do you think you'd learn how to coach, Mark? Well, I don't know. Could I watch somebody else? Could I watch another manager? Yeah, that's a mentoring, shadowing opportunity. We can put that in there. Um, you could potentially go to an outside course that the organization as a third party that sends all our managers to is Is that something that interests you? And you help them sculpt their plan on how to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, and a good distinction. Mark, you get started. I'm just gonna put something away for a second. So identify the growth aspirations. I'll be 5 seconds. Start talking. I won't lose you.
I lost what you asked me.
Identify the growth aspirations. What does that mean?
Yeah, so if you're gonna construct a plan and you're gonna identify the gaps, what you want to figure out is what is that growth, which will identify the gap, but more importantly, what are their expectations so you can set some reality around it. If someone wants to be the vice president and they've started as a junior accountant and they want to be there in 1 year, VP of finance, that's not going to happen. And the way you're going to define that for them where employees get frustrated is when you say no, you can't put that in your plan. 1 year's too fast. That becomes frustrating for people who want to grow quickly. 1 year is an exaggeration. I think everyone would understand that. But some people have a different timeline and understanding of reality. Define the gaps so they can better understand their goal and truly be aligned to a realistic goal of where they want to get.
So it's interesting. The other thing, if you remember the illustration with the elephant, it's easy to define someone's aspirations, and then you can turn around a little bit later on, and they're completely modified.
Right. But the beauty of a performance development strategy is you're identifying the gaps for the plan now. And if you're doing it every quarter, you're having the conversation where they do 2 or 3 of the things, and they realize, oh God, I really don't want to manage. And yes, then they can course correct. But what happens is we don't talk to employees and we say, okay, well, we're going to make you a manager because you're good at selling widgets. And they go, okay, well, then I guess I got to become a manager. And they know they don't like it, but no one's having the dialogue. So you can't reset the goal and show them what the other opportunities are. Because the process isn't in place in the first place, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Mark, excuse me. You've got me nailed. I'm having an ice cream.
Go ahead, man.
Forgive me. So that's 4. Number 5 is identify the learning experience gaps, which sounds a little bit like number 4.
Yeah, but this is like literally specific. So now you know the gaps. What are the learning pieces you can put in place to close them? So this is like, I don't know, I want to manage, but I've never led people. Okay. Here, shadow so-and-so, here, go to this course here, and you're actually putting that into the plan.
Right. So give me a bit more on that, because 4 and 5 are awfully similar. Identify the growth aspirations. We've been talking about gaps. Identify the learning experience gaps.
So, well, first you start by identifying the gaps, right, of where they want to go. Then you revalidate the goal to make sure, okay, now that you want to go there and we know the gaps, it makes sense on your timeline, because everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people want to be a manager. And when they say that and you tell them all the gaps, then they might change their mind on the goal. Either, well, maybe I don't want to be a manager, maybe I want to be a supervisor, maybe I don't want to be a manager in 2 years. Boy, now that I know the gaps, that might take 4. The piece that I'm talking about is no longer about identifying the gap, it's identifying the learning opportunity to close the gap.
I'm with you. Thank you. That's a great distinction.
Okay, so specifically, what are we going to do to scratch that itch?
And number 6 brings us to 6 very neatly. Close the gaps, research and confirm learning opportunities. Examples: mentoring, job shadowing, in-house training, books, conferences, adult education, etc. Close the gaps, Mark. How do you do that?
So where that sounds, so again, it's cascading now. So if you look at it, we got to, hey, what are some of those learning opportunities? The leader is giving their team member some ideas. The team member now needs to go away and do some research. Hey, you know what? What about an online course in leadership? Want to go see if we can find one? I got a little bit of an education budget. Now that we talked about what you need to learn, you go do the work. It's your plan. You go find out what you think you need to learn that and come back for approval, because I'm going to allocate the resource, or I'm going to allocate the dollars to allow you to get the learning.
Yeah, and it makes the employee, the team member, have more skin in the game if they do the work, right?
Well, it's also like it stops you from assuming where they want to go and the way they need to learn it. Like for me, I would say if I wanted to learn, it would be send me to a course. I love sitting in training sessions. For some people, they're not comfortable in that group environment. They'd rather read a book or they'd rather watch someone one on one. Well, me as the leader, I'm going to guide them to that goal based on what I like. And they might not be successful because it might not be their preferred learning method. So I'm going to
Right.
allow them to do is pick that learning method. I don't mind. You go research when, what date, where. Is it a book? Is it a course? Is it someone you want to shadow in the company? Because we said shadowing could be part of it. And you come back, that's going to tell me where you need my allocation of resources, authorization, time, whatever that looks like. So you are set up to win.
Perfect. Quarterly creation, updates, and review. I assume this really means that when you schedule it, you don't forget it.
Yeah, you put it in the calendar. Because what will happen if someone wants to be a manager in 2 years, you'll put in 47 things that need to get done. And then you'll sit down at your review time in a year and go, oh, you only got 8 done. What do we do? Doing it quarterly, make sure you only put in the right amount of goals that can be done in 3 months while they're doing their day job, right? And then it gives you a quicker reset, because what will happen is, I've had this happen where someone says, yeah, I'd really like to be a manager. And then I have them sit under me coaching and showing the detailed feedback and giving somebody tough feedback and how that feels, or explaining to them that part of the role is sometimes after you've done all this great stuff of setting one up for success, they're just not willing to do it. And you got to terminate an employee. And people are going through that process and they're going, oh God, it's not what I thought it was. I'm not okay with that. If you wait a year, you've lost a year of development to change your mind. If you do it quarterly, you can do that quick reset.
That's such an interesting thing, Mark, because I think of defensemen, for example, and if you lose your age 23 year, they say you can never, even though you do it the next year, you can never get that year back. You know what I mean? It's really a sweet spot, isn't it, between when someone's young enough and ambitious enough, because their life can really change over 3 years.
Yeah, like think of the people that have thought they were going to be a president one day because they were single, marriage wasn't on their lifestyle, whether it's a mom or a dad, and they had a kid, and life changed. I went through it. My wife went through it. People go through it all the time, and your career starts to be like, okay, I got to balance career and family. I don't know if it's that same time to dedicate and invest in me, because I'm investing in 3 other people right now at home. And that happens all the time. And so if you're not having that consistent dialogue, to your point, what happens is you'll lose that opportunity, right? Like you'll lose that opportunity to say, I'm putting this on hold. Here's why. But I want to stop learning. So let's just scale it down. Instead of me doing 2 courses and 2 conferences, can I just do one of each this quarter? Because I got to take care of Griffin at home this quarter. And so that's why, again, I'm adamant that it's quarterly, but I'm also adamant that there's no accountability, because life happens. This isn't about you're not doing your day job. This is about helping you grow. And if you need to put that on the back burner, I'm here. I got your back. Table stakes are you still keep doing a day job, by the way. But let's put that to the side and let's give you what works for your life right now to not slow down and completely halt your development, but put it in a bucket that you can manage while you're living life.
One of my favorite ones, prep from within, so experience is not a hurdle for internal candidates, because I think that's a real kick to people when you tell someone inside your organization that this job is too good for you. This job is too good for them.
Yeah. Or they like post it externally as they post it internally, and then they tell you you're not qualified because you don't have the experience.
Right.
And that is one of the major drivers behind why I want this as one of the 5 servant leadership anchors. You know, when people, I hope we position this book properly, that it's like, again, it's not soft, it's not huggy. It is built so companies can succeed and grow and scale, as long as they're taking the team members along that journey, because that's the easiest way to grow a company. People do the work. Even behind technology, people do the work. So the more you invest in your people, your output should improve and your results should improve. And the best way to scale, so you don't take the culture risk of bringing someone from the outside who has experience, is start developing your next in line now, so they have experience before they get the role. And so I'm always a big believer in saying, If I've got someone I know, I see their behavior, I see the potential of them being a director and they're a manager now, I start closing that functional gap through a development strategy. So when we post, and I have that internal candidate, and I do decide to post externally, I have a fair game now, right? And now I got a candidate from the outside whose risk is I don't know them. I don't know if they're bullshitting me. I don't know if their resume is really right. Everyone's going to give a good reference anyways because they have to by law. And they may come into the organization and be a complete mismatch, and I'm going to be recruiting again for 90 days. That's the risk there. The risk internally is they were a strong performer in their previous role. So that's not a risk. I know they can perform. They're a great culture fit. They've been here for years. People like them. They work well cross laterally. My only risk is the learning really doesn't line up to the experience till you're in the role. But I do know they knew how to do the role because they got a little learning along the way to close all those gaps. Now all they need is experience. Now you got a fair playing ground and you've minimized your risk of hiring someone from the outside. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes you need to bring someone from the outside to shake it up. There's a strategic reason, or you're doing all this stuff, you just don't have anyone ready. But your lower risk, higher reward to scale an organization is to develop your people for future roles now so you can scale.
Which brings us to number 9. And again, it's similar to number 8. Prepping a culture fit from within is a safer bet than an experienced candidate to the outside. So how is 9 different from 8? Prep from within, so experience is not a hurdle.
It's really not. I just blended the two. I gave you the answer they're 2 separate answers. I gave them both at once.
I can do that. I can fix that.
You just have to divide the first part of what I said and the second.
You know what? It's not my first rodeo. I think I can handle a big job like that.
I do this, Mike. I try and validate my point by an example. And what I did was I gave you 2 points by validating the first one.
All to the good. Celebrate wins publicly. Show the work and behaviors that get rewarded through promotions and learning opportunities within your organization. This is how you truly create a learning organization. You got to have the carrot.
Yeah, like if you want people to buy into a learning organization and focus on their careers and leaders to focus on their careers, you don't want people to think, what you don't want is people are getting promoted and no one understands why. They must know so-and-so. It's the boys club. It's this.
They got pictures.
They play the political. Yeah, they got pictures, or they play the political game well. What you want is an organization where you do this. Someone gets promoted, and their peers go, "Oh, they're on a development strategy for this, obviously, and they've obviously done a good job with it because I'm going through the same thing. I guess I'm just not there yet." And when they ask their manager, "Why did Joe get it, or why did Gina get it and Joe didn't?" the manager can say, "Hey, you're both on the same track. You're both doing great. I trust the hiring manager saw that you're both going through this development process and they judged that Gina was more fit for the role than you were, Joe." That's how you get transparency, where you don't get people going, "Well, that person doesn't really do much. Like, how did they get it?" Put everybody on the same, give everybody the same opportunity to develop. And when they get it, tell the story. Hey, here's why Gina got the job, everybody. I want to talk about the last 9 months of her effort learning this role above and beyond her day job so she could get ready and play a bigger contribution. Gina went to this conference, went to this course. Gina went to and worked in this department and helped out her peers on this day to observe. And Gina, and now you've justified it through development of why someone's gotten promoted, so people don't think it's a friggin' boys club. There are, as you know very well, too many organizations that still operate under either the boys club, right? Or the political club. Tell the boss what they want to hear, not what's best, and that'll get me promoted.
So why can't you just go along, Mark?
I'm never gonna fucking go along.
Okay.
And I know, Mike, I'm glad you prompted me with the question, because I know I come across very standoffish around that. And I am pissed off at seeing that happening. I have seen people who work for me not get promoted and be beat out by a better person internally and externally, and I've been okay. And I've gone back to the well and I've justified the decision and I've developed that person up. And then I've watched people get promoted and I look at it and go, I know they're not doing anything. I know their leader's not putting in that effort to help them succeed. And it's not that I'm mad for my person. There's a part of that, but I feel bad for the person who's going to be put in through a role that they're not ready for. And it's going to come back and bite them and the organization in the ass. So when I say I'm not going to fucking go along, I'm not going to go along. I'm going to create change.
It poisons the well. Everything you draw from that well afterwards carries the taint of that corruption.
And I'd like to think where I've observed that people haven't done it on purpose. They've done it because it's more comfortable and they believe in their decision. But I can point to the fact in those examples, there was no development plan for any of those individuals who got promoted.
So let's move over, if you don't mind. Let's get our final anchor in tonight. Would that be okay?
Yeah. I just realized you're not on video with me. You can't see my OHL Guelph Storm Nick Suzuki jersey I got on right now.
He is. They think quite a lot of him, eh?
I watched him play because they're 5 minutes from my house, and I obviously got more interested in when he got traded here midway through the year. We went to the Memorial Cup a couple seasons ago.
Yeah.
And knowing he was a Hab, you know me, I was all over it. So I was going to love the guy no matter what. And I say this all the time, and he showed it in the playoffs last year. He's not like a Lemieux size guy, but you know what he does? He slows down the play like Mario used to do. You remember there's a goal they show on the TSN highlights all the time, and it was back against, I think Minnesota was still in the league then. Maybe it was Minnesota. I thought it was.
Oh baby, yeah. And he John Casey was in goal.
Yeah, and he dekes through everybody and then falls into the goalie as he puts it in. He looks like he's going so slow.
Yeah.
He creates open ice just by the way he envisions his next move and can read it. Suzuki's the same way, but he's fast.
Not a bad trade for Max Pacioretty.
I got to tell you, Nick Suzuki, don't mark my words because I really don't know what I'm talking about. But my have gut and Guelph home tells me that he's going to be the next Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, maybe not Connor McDavid, but he's going to be one of the elite 6 to 10 young players in the game.
Servant leadership, anchor number 5. I don't think I told you this. I watched the 75 Canadians against the touring Soviet team.
Yeah.
Danny Gallivan did the game, Dick Irvin. So I watched that 75 Canadians team, and it's how they didn't win is ridiculous because you couldn't have made a team with the rest of the league that was better than that team.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They were so good, but you know who really stood out was the Grinders, particularly, and not just the Grinders, but Sir Savard was terrific.
Oh, the Senator.
Really, really good. I'd never watched him before. He was terrific. Anyway, gather your data. All of your weekly one-on-ones will be your bank of data to write a great review. Now, this makes so much sense, but we tend to, as soon as we write something, we think we can throw it away.
Yeah. So again, the reason it is the 5th anchor of the 5 is if you do the first 4 that we've been talking about, number 5 takes away all the pain of writing a performance review, and it's a real pain. Like I've been through it when I didn't follow this process, where as a leader, you sit down, you go, okay, I got to write 10 of these today. I like so-and-so and they're good and they hit their numbers, but I really don't know what else to say. Or I know this person has had a terrible year, but I can't give them the examples. Like it's my emotion. The one-on-one, you've got, if you're doing them every week, and you won't, holidays. So let's say you got 40 of these one-on-ones and you've done them properly. All your specific feedback is sitting there. The boxes are set up that you've got your recognition point if it's above and beyond, or your deficiency if it's really hasn't got corrected. So you shouldn't have more than 6 or 7 of those through the year. Your performance review is going to write itself. If you've got 52 weeks of history, you don't have to worry about forgetting what happened this year. And sadly, we're human beings. If we don't have that discipline, we don't have that data, what do? We write a performance review on what we can remember, which is probably the last 4 to 6 weeks. How's that fair to the employee one way or the other?
But the thing about that, though, Mark, is that aren't you discouraging the candidate or the person that being vulnerable in their weekly one-on-ones?
No, because you're addressing that conversation. Remember, we talked about number one. We talked about, hey, what can I do to
Yes.
help you? You're going to close that gap when they've done that learning and recognize it. So you're not going to hold them accountable at the end of the year. The only things that are going to get into the like, hey, you got like an area of opportunity. Because if not, it's a coaching note in the weekly thing. The area of opportunity is like, you're not hitting your numbers. And we've been talking about this for 6 weeks and I've been developing you and I
Right.
need you to change this behavior now. And if they
Right.
do, it's gone. If they don't, it's there. And it's one of the major
Right.
points you can hold them accountable to going in the following year. You're going to look at your one-on-ones and you're going to go, this showed up 1 week. Hey, wait a second, this showed up 13 weeks and the behavior never stopped.
A yearly review, not what I remember over the last month's review. See point number one, which is
I
think
just
we've
gave
done
you.
the same thing. I think
Yeah.
we addressed both points at the same time.
Yeah.
Number three, give specific examples from your one-on-one to provide recognition in areas of opportunity. We're also, this sounds an awful lot like one and two as well.
Yeah, but this is where I'm saying, the first one is about have the data in front of you. So have your
Right.
your 40 weeks of data so you're ready.
Right.
This one is about like go when you're gonna write in a review the employee's 3 key strengths that you've assessed through the years. So maybe it's sales performance, customer service, and let's say administrative skills, because they're a sales professional,
Right.
but they have to do paperwork too. You're going to go back to your review and you're going to say, for sales, as mentioned on September 19th, 2020, you had accomplished your yearly budget by 3/4 of the year. Congratulations, year end was 118% of goal. And so it's specific from the one-on-ones, and it's not
Right.
you hit your sales target, good job. Same thing for the other two. And if it's a deficiency, what you're going to say is, one of the areas of improvement for next year is your communication with your peers, right? And so the employee is going to go, my communicate. What do you mean my communication with my peers? Well, as mentioned on March 17th and on June 21st and August
Right.
19th and November 18th, we've had conflict with your peers that needs to get resolved. I have seen improvement over the last 6 weeks of the year, but this was a consistent theme in 2020 that I'm going to need corrected for 2021. There's no debate. So when you give specific feedback, you build more trust with the employee because they're like, he's paying attention, he's got a discipline, he didn't forget. God, I like hearing that feedback because I know what I'm doing right. And when he gives me something to work on, it's not his gut. There's no argument. We've been talking about this for 52 weeks or 26 weeks or 8 weeks. Remember, what we didn't talk about through all of this, Mike, is performance management. So if I'm coaching you and in your area of opportunity, it's coming up, you're not hitting your numbers because you're not greeting your clients, you're not hitting your numbers because you're not attempting to sell upgrades, you're not hitting your numbers because your customer service scores, that eventually gets out of the coaching model and into a performance management where it's documented. And I'm saying, listen, after multiple weeks of coaching, I've asked you to change the following behaviors and you have not. Immediately, and to be measured over the next 12 weeks, I'm expecting the following behaviors. If not done, it will result in the following discipline. That's a separate process.
Feedback in a performance review should be behavior based. Add, have, value, add statements. Add, have, and. I think you meant to say and.
Yeah.
Have, value, add statements.
Yeah, it is and. So when I say specifically you had a great sales year, you hit 117% of your goal. So there is a very specific piece of feedback. The value add will be, I'm going to look for the benefit to the customer, the company, and you. If ideally, I'm going to give you a value statement for all three. At a minimum, I'm going to give you one. And that would look like an 117% goal allowed you to achieve 117% of your salary earning potential this year. It also allowed us to sell out of the community quicker in this city, which allowed us to buy more land because it minimizes our land risk. And through all of that, you've satisfied all the customers in Guelph while delivering that sales results. Thank you for those efforts. Again, the reason that's so critical is specific, so I can buy it. I know that you're paying attention. And value, so I understand why I'm doing it and why it's important to my boss that I continue to do that.
I understand.
Fuck, I hope so. We've only been talking for 4 months.
Hasn't been 4 months.
I think we started this back at the end of October.
God, you poor bugger. You've spoken to me. I've spoken to you a lot more than I've spoken to my wife.
You know,
She's okay with that, by the way.
yeah.
Do not look at self-evaluations in advance of the review. Open them and review out the performance review first, and then do your review, and then close any gaps. Don't use their self-evaluation as your Cole's notes for your review. They know what you're up to, and you lose credibility as a leader. Have the difficult conversations on the gaps and realign your relationships. And of course, this speaks very well to that one piece that we both kind of like.
Yeah, and again, I don't have to add to that because I think I explained it as I gave you the point in that writing. But just to add to that, because it's pretty self-explanatory, there's not a bigger pet peeve for an employee, and it's such a crutch from an HR department when done wrong. When we say your self-evaluation comes out in October, give it back to me for November, your performance review is December. And then we write a performance review that in some instances I have seen it copy and pasted. But in most instances, it's like all I'm doing is paraphrasing what you put in your self-evaluation, if I agree. It's a crutch, and the employee knows that they just wrote their own review. It's insulting, and they're on to you. What I'm suggesting is self-evaluations are good because they're really good about identifying any gaps. So when you leave that performance review, resetting for next year, you're on the same page because you've had some dialogue about it. So what I recommend people do if they do self-evaluations, have them written in advance of the leader writing it. Put it in a brown envelope, bring it to the review with you. I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about it until you and I sit down together. Then I go first. Here's my review. Or sorry, you go first. Here's your self-evaluation. I think I did this, this, and this, and this well. Okay, well, thank you for the feedback. I've kept some notes. Let me tell you about how I summarize the year. And they're done independently. And as you can see, we pretty much agree on 5 of the 6 points. But you don't think your add-ons seem to be an issue from your sales behavior. Why is that? Because the numbers look different and my observations have been documented differently through the year. And now you can have some debate and get the employee back on board in an agreement with the performance review. Or in a worst case scenario, they may say to you, yeah, but Mark, we only talked about that once. And in the last 4 months, I've been really good. I've been above the company average. And you can go, you know what? You're right. I'm going to take it out. Because you have changed the behavior for 4 months. I'm still going to put the number in. The KPI needs to go there. But I'm going to say that we don't have to change that behavior next year. But please know if you drop that, we're going to relook at it. That's the worst that can come out if there's a gap. But what happens is you leave the review on the same page. And it's such a powerful tool that gets used the wrong way.
Garbage in, garbage out. Understand why the first 4 anchors are critical and how easy and fair your performance review will now be. Now, this is a beauty because every employee has deep reservations about the performance review. They feel, well, you can speak to this better than I can. Okay, let's do that. Tell me why people are suspicious of performance reviews in which they're being reviewed, and where does garbage in and garbage out fit into that?
I'll tell you where it starts. Sadly, in most occasions, you never talk to me other than at our department meeting. And now you're going to judge my performance for the year. We have our department meeting once every 2 weeks, but you've never come see me do my job. We've never had a one-on-one. And now you're going to write a performance review, Mike, and it happens everywhere. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
So I'm already going into that review knowing you don't know me. So I don't know what I'm going to get. Like whether it's good or bad, I guess I'm going to find out if I get a raise and maybe get a little bit of feedback. Because we haven't had the first 4 steps of the 4 anchors in servant leadership all year. So I don't know what I'm getting. So if you put all that shitty effort in, you're going to leave with all that shitty effort out. An employee who still doesn't trust you, isn't motivated to do their job, and you're going to feel it as the person giving the review that they're not on board with the review. You're going to feel it instantly, but they're probably not going to say anything. So that's garbage in, garbage out. And it's getting even worse. I've literally heard CEOs go, yeah, I was talking to HR, and maybe we shouldn't do performance reviews at all anymore. They're not bringing any value. Well, they're not bringing any value because you're not doing the other 4 things through the year. You're not actually coaching your friggin' team. Of course they're not bringing any value because you're summarizing a year you know fuck all about.
Yeah.
So go ahead and take away what an employee really wants is feedback from you and a summary of their year and what they did well and what they need to work on because they really want to hear both. and then tie it to some level of compensation if that's what you do in your organization. So I know how people get promoted and get raises, etc. But throw it away because you don't want to do that other work. That's fucking
Yeah,
that's
this
fucking
is,
bullshit. That's bullshit.
and it's so, I know it's so patently dishonest, isn't it? It's lazy.
That is one where, you always hear me say, hey, listen, that's, people are they're not doing it on purpose. That is a decision that people make on purpose because they're too busy for it. They can always find someone else. So just do the form and give them their raise.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
It's what happens when you put
Use
people
K-
in positions of HR who have no HR background.
Well, of course, everything really comes back to the idea that historically people who were good at making widgets are elevated up. The Peter principle, I guess, is a very well known example of it. But I mean, really, that's the motherboard of dysfunction.
Yep. I'm purposely saying yep because I'll talk about this all night.
Use KPIs. The scoreboard matters, but the behaviors get repeated and drive the story of the game, i.e. highlights the measurable but recognize or challenge the behaviors that are causing the wins and losses. This too, I think we managed to summarize very nicely in 15 words, but give me your thoughts on this, Mark.
Yeah, and so that very simply is, we talked about this a little while ago about coach the behavior, not the scoreboard. But what I think people think when I say that so often is they think, again, well, it's as long as you're nice to your people, who cares about the result? Absolutely not. Like, I'm here to build a winning organization. I'm here to influence my customers and other people I know to build winning organizations. So the KPIs have to be there because they are a way of measuring the score. Is what we're doing being successful? And that will guide our conversations around behavior. If they are, let's recognize behaviors specifically. If they aren't, let's find out about the deficient behaviors so we can change the result on the scoreboard. So I'm absolutely big on KPIs. I'm big on financials. That's what allows us to scale company and have more work and more jobs. We got to hit the numbers, but you don't change the numbers by coaching the numbers. You need to coach the behaviors or recognize the behaviors that create them. So that's that one.
Isolate yourself and allocate the proper time. Write the review with the attention you would hope your boss gave your career. Block out your calendar and turn off the phone. Boy, this might be the hardest advice you've given of the 50 points.
Yeah, because it takes time, right? So if you're a VP and you've got, let's call it 7 people to write for. Let's say you got 2 or 3 directors and 4 or 5 managers that you have to write both lines, or you have to give feedback into the manager ones, but write the director ones. Well, that takes time. And for managers, sometimes they have 8 or 9 people. And so what I always did was I made sure that I forced it into my team's calendars who were writing reviews like I did with my own. And that always started with a department meeting. I'd bring in my sales team, I'd bring in my client service team, I'd bring in my IT team, and I'd say, guys, here are my expectations of how you're going to write a performance review so your teams get value out of it. Knowing that they've already been trained on the first 4, so they've got all the data, but I'm very big on make sure you give specific feedback. Make sure you put a value add. If you've got specific feedback that has documentation to support it, whether it's a positive email from a customer or a one-on-one form from a previous week, attach that to the review at the back as an appendix. Let's put in the work so the employee sits there and really sees that you've been there for them all year and you really want to show that effort when you deliver this review. That's how important it is. And so to do that, calendarize the meeting. So the leader sets the expectation for the other leaders. Do a follow-up meeting when they've written their reviews to review each review with the leader who has written it, and then schedule the reviews. And I find the guidance I give my leaders is you should be expecting to be taking no less than an hour and a half to 2 hours to write a review. So think about that. It's 4 reviews, I'm done a business day. If I've got 8 people, that's 2 business days. And when I say that, people go like, you're nuts. Like, that's 2 days. What's more important than your person's yearly review? Like, tell me, because if your people aren't producing and they're not engaged, your service falls apart, your brand falls apart, your customer disconnects, and your employee engagement goes down the shitter, and people start to quit. Why do we put people at the end of the value equation and how much time we invest? And what's more important for an employee than getting yearly feedback formally. So you take that time and you take 2 days and you give 8 people who count on you to lead them the best of your friggin' efforts.
That's the big boy pants, and part of it, Mark, is writing. People don't like writing. So how do you get around that? Because that's maybe not the skill they were in, but I mean, there's no other way to do it. You got to write it. You can't just riff it.
Yeah.
How do you get people through that extraordinarily often? People really procrastinate a lot with writing, Mark. All of us do.
Yep.
How do you get the person to do it? Like what's the magic bullet here?
There isn't one. I set the expectations, and they know when I set them that they got to find the time. It's one of those not. So I have a very few non-negotiables in my life, but writing a proper performance review is one of them. So if that means it takes you 6 hours to push through that, then you find the 6 hours. If that means that you need my help, like, hey, Mark, can you show me how you construct one? Can we write one together? Because maybe I'm not setting up my process right to get the content better, and then I can write it. Like, or maybe I just need more time. That is one that is a non-negotiable. I'll help you, but you're writing it, period. Like, and stop. This is someone's life and someone's career. If you want this responsibility of a leader, you're going to deliver this. I'll teach you, I'll help you, I'll guide you, but this is non-negotiable. So, this is the one time you hear me say, get with the friggin' program, because you're writing it. And you're writing it well.
Big boy pants.
Yeah, like and you can only pull that card so often. And what I feel, and again, remember, if you're practicing servant leadership and you're having weekly one-on-ones and you're giving open-ended questions, you would find out these sticking points. That's why these 5 anchors are so critical together, because you would have a manager that you're meeting with if you're a VP, and you'd say, hey, FYI, performance reviews are due in 2 weeks. I haven't seen one from you yet. How you feeling? Open-ended? Yeah, I'll get them done. Okay, well, help me understand. How can I help you get them done if you haven't started them yet? Where are you at? Well, I really haven't done any. Okay, well, you know how I feel about these written. Like, what's holding you back? Mark, I just don't like to write. Okay, talk to me about that. What is it that you don't like? Well, I struggle for. Okay, let me help you plan. So everything that you set as an expectation, if you're doing the first 4 steps, should come up as little red flags for you to coach along the way. And so when I say you're writing the review, and I do that meeting 2 months in advance, and I set out my expectations before my leaders go and write, I'm following up every week in my one-on-ones to say, how's it going? I've built trust through my connection meeting at the very beginning of these calls, through emotional deposits versus withdrawals, because now I'm taking a withdrawal. Now I'm making you do something you'd rather not do, and I need you to do it because it's important to me and it's important to your team. Well, I've built all that trust, so you're going to tell me that you're not comfortable, you don't want to, and I'm going to help you get through it. All of that falling apart. Remember, we also talked about willingness versus knowledge. I've given you the knowledge. You're just not willing to write the review. Too fucking bad. I ain't coaching you on that. No, it's true. Like, you get there sometimes.
Emotion needs to be let up. Let the tears flow, be supportive, and get back to the behaviors of deficient performers. So give me an example of a tough one. That's how you handle.
I've literally had people cry, and it happens. It's normal, right? And so someone knows they've had a bad year because you've been having these weekly one-on-ones, and as much as they expected, you're now summarizing the year and you're saying, here's what you did really good, but here are some deficiencies that you really got to fix, and this is why you're below average, because you've got to give them a tough rating. And there's emotion, and they cry. And so I grab the tissue box and I put it on the desk, and I say, it's okay. Like, I get it. I might be where you're at now. So do what you got to do. I'm not going anywhere. My goal here is to help you improve to at least average next year. So it's okay to cry. That's cool. It shows me you care. And then eventually the tears subside. I don't end it because I feel bad and I made them cry. I don't feel great about making them cry. I go back to the review once I've given them the space and the emotional composure to say, it's okay to react that way. It means you care, but let's talk about how we make this not happen again in the future. Too many leaders, when they see emotion, it shuts down the dialogue. And they'll do one of two things. They'll be, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's not that bad. Like, you're okay. Like, I still like you. And you're not really helping them because you need the behavior to change or they're not going to be successful. Or leaders will say, see the person crying and just go, okay, and point number 3, and they'll keep their head down and keep writing. No, address the emotion, let it out, make them feel comfortable that it's okay to cry. Tell them it's because they care, and then say, okay, but we got to get back here because my goal is to get you ahead. And I don't help you by shying away from where you're deficient. So I want to make sure you understand that going out of here. That's what I'm referring to.
This is very important, Mark. When you say that people cry, we're not just talking about women. We're talking about everybody, right?
Oh God, yeah. I cry all the friggin' time.
Yeah.
It's sad, actually. I mean, I don't cry at work that often, but I do. Like,
Yeah.
I have people who've worked for me will go, oh yeah, eventually, I will be extremely proud of something my team has done, and when I get that proud, Mike, I'm not afraid to admit I cry. It happens like 2 or 3
I cry.
times.
That's what I cry too.
2 or 3 times
Yeah.
a year, I'll be so proud of people who I see it because I talk to them so regularly. I know how much they care about it, and they get something done, and the pride inside me, it comes out as tears.
I know exactly what. That's funny you would say. I know exactly what you're talking.
I will occasionally cry. Where this has happened is when I feel like I've really let my team down, and I haven't lived up to all the shit I'm talking about in this book. Because it's happened. I think we talked about it once with the BMO Field example, where I shit on everybody at the end of the day. We're getting the stadium open. I sat in my office and I bawled, and when everyone was gone. But the reason I sat there and cried was I know I wasn't delivering what they deserved, and I know I wasn't living up to what I believe in. So yeah, like I don't. You also don't want to go to work crying every day as a leader. Like that's not good either. But the ability to show emotion is not a negative thing. It's just an emotion. It means you're reacting to the dialogue. You care. You don't want to be delivering what you are delivering, or you're so damn proud of what you're delivering. So yeah, I just let people cry. It happens, but we're not getting away from making you better. So let's get through that and let's move back on to the conversation.
Finally, thank you. Always, thank you. Thank you.
Same. People are coming to work, and I always believe of managing to the 90%, not the 10%, right? Because you're always going to have naysayers. You're always going to have people who don't believe, but whether someone's doing well or not, most people want to succeed, and most people aren't just coming for the paycheck. They're in doing their best, and if they're good or bad at their job, that doesn't take away from the effort. So I always show gratitude for the effort, regardless of the result.
Okay, Mark, let's stop tape there.
Okay.
And